My name is Ted Petit and I head up the video support team for the NCHA. Today I'm going to present basic techniques used to properly video a cutting horse run. These techniques are considered the most widely accepted methods. Everyone has a video style that they have developed. There's nothing wrong with that. But we need to produce a universal product that will support judges anywhere in the nation. Now today I'm going to play a video sample, and as I see an important point, I'll pause the video and explain what the main focus is. Hopefully by the end of the run you will see the foundation techniques that help keep our videos at a level that supports the NCHA judging staff nationwide. Okay, so let's get going. This is a show that we shot this year called the El Rancho Spring Classic. It's held in Rancho Murrieta, California. As the title pages are displayed, you'll see that I have the horse's name, the owner and rider's name. I'll have the date and also the class that this particular run was shot in.
Riding in house Rocket with a couple California board straight shot play guy. Start 10 toes to work, owned by Rocket Landing. Rocket's going to be on deck to the top of the plane.
Okay, I'm going to pause. Now, when I'm training a new videographer, I'll tell them to, the first thing I want them to do is to zoom in as much as they can. Not a lot, but just zoom in a bit so that the horse and rider are more visible on the screen, especially if this is being broadcast on the internet. You want to help the folks that are watching the video to see who this is. And another thing that I do is, as the rider is approaching the herd, there's a certain point that we need to be able to back off of the rider and include the entire herd. Now, probably one of the biggest mistakes that a new videographer will make is to stay far too close or too tight on the horse and the rider. Even as they enter the herd, I've seen videos where videographers have stayed completely zoomed in on the horse and the rider. And when I'm training a videographer, I explain to them, it's kind of like this, it's kind of a little bit of cinema. As they're walking in towards the herd, there's something they're walking towards. And people are curious about that. They want to know, well, what is he looking at? And eventually, we need to back out so that it now reveals what the rider's looking at. Obviously, there's an importance here also so that it can set up the view so that the judges can begin to see if the rider is honing in on one particular cow or another, if there was a switch involved, but all of this needs to be set up by seeing the entire herd and the rider. So I tell them to zoom in a bit as they're beginning to walk in, but then pull out a little bit so that you can now see that the entire herd and the horse and the rider. And if you'll notice right here on the screen, here's the back fence line, okay? That is a generic benchmark that I use, that I tell my new guys to use as a point of when they should start to consider zooming out. Now, as he walks in here, you're going to see a cow's head popping out over here. And that's a visual cue to the videographer that, okay, he's getting close to the herd, so let me go ahead and zoom out. So let me start it up now, and you'll see that. Okay, now it's obvious that he's getting close to the herd. And that's a good time to zoom out so that you can now set the scene up so that the judges can see where he is relative to the herd, how he's going to set the herd up so that he can start the cutting. Now, I mean, I mentioned before that I tell my new videographers to use the back fence lines as a benchmark. Sometimes, though, the herd may be pushed way off to the other side. So then, of course, you just have to wait. And sometimes I'll tell them, use the framing of your camera. As you begin to move across and you start to see some of the cows coming into view, that would be a good time to zoom out. But the most important thing here is that we want the entire herd plus the horse and the rider to be in the scene to help the judges set up to see if they're, again, like I mentioned before, if they're looking for switches. So we want to see if he's setting up cows, and that's a possibility. Okay, now here's the second part that I talk about with my my new video guys. Is I use the term that we use we're like video cutters. We take in the entire scene, meaning the herd, the horse, and the rider. As the horse and rider begin to push out cows, and it's obvious that in this case, it's obvious here that this section of the herd is no longer going to be coming into play. Then gradually start to zoom in on your subject matter here. All right, so watch this unfold. Okay, now you notice that he had the whole herd. The rider pushed out a couple of cows, singled out one in particular, and then as soon as he began to follow the cow, the videographer zoomed in. All right, let me back that up a little bit. Okay. Now watch. The remaining part of the herd here is no longer in play. These two cows he pushed out originally, but obviously he's focused on this cow. So the scene is going to go from a wide angle and it's going to trim down to where it's going to be primarily the horse, rider, and one cow. And I'll talk about another little rule that I set up with my, or I explain to my videographers in just a second. But watch how, as soon as he peels this one off, the videographer will zoom in to capture that area. Okay, now here's another area that we go into. My basic approach to video is that we should have the primary focus in the center. We will have, it's called the rule of thirds. And that is, you split your screen up into sections. And if you notice here, the videographer has split this up perfectly. Here you have a third of the screen, you have a centered third, and you have the right third of the screen. What this does is it allows the videographer to frame them up and allow movement from within the frame here without an exaggerated camera movement. I've seen video where the camera snaps left and right, so much to the point where I've heard other cutters, they'll call it, they'll say that they get seasick watching it. Well, the biggest thing that we have to avoid is snapping the head of the camera around so much so that it becomes visually disorienting. Remember, obviously, video is a visual media. You know, it's just like I tell my new guys that when they come in, when you watch a style that they use, this developed over the last years now, where it's that street it has that street element in it. The camera's on the street, it zooms in on the primary subject, it snaps away, shows something out in the street, it comes back to the subject, it jerks over a little bit over their shoulder, it goes to this way. After a while, that can become very visually disorienting. So what we need to do is we need to have as solid of an image present or presented to the judges so that they don't have to sit here and try to keep up with the visual impact of the camera moving left and right and left and right. So what I tell my video guys is I want them to frame up the subject, have a little leeway on either side, and begin to work from there. Now, as you become more advanced, you can zoom in a little bit more, but remember, the more you zoom in, the more critical it is to keep up with the action. And it is very easy, even for an experienced videographer, to have the cow all of a sudden make a movement you weren't expecting, and the next thing you know, they're off the screen. That's happened to every one of us, and we try our best not to have that happen. But so we needed to build something into our style that gives us a little bit more buffer. And so a beginning videographer, I will tell them, split your screen up into thirds, use those side panels here as a buffer zone, and then allow the horse and the rider to move within the frame. Now obviously you have to follow the action, but don't do it in such a way that it becomes visually disorienting. Okay, so let me start this again. Okay, let me back up here a little bit. There's a couple of things I want to point out. As they ran over to the wall, of course the turn back is starting to get in the way a little bit, but rather than stay zoomed in at this point, and you'll notice at this level, and also to keep the head movement or the camera movement down to a minimum, the videographer uses the zoom to go wide. And that's something that I tell my new guys is that, you know, we also work angles. You can have a cow and a horse running to the side. The cow can peel off and go back almost to the center of the arena. The horse can be moving across, straight across. Well, rather than trying to follow both of them at a you know, in a tight fashion, I tell my video guys to zoom out a little bit to cover more ground. The head of the camera hasn't moved that much, but now you've opened it up so you have more of the scene visible. And that also keeps head movement down. The video image being presented looks a lot more solid, and you can keep up with the action better. So watch as they move over here. The videographer is going to zoom out a little bit to capture all of that movement without moving the head of the camera a lot. And if you notice, it's a nice solid image. You see the movement within the frame, but the head of the camera is not moving itself. Now he's back a little bit, and so he's going to move in a little bit. Now notice here, movement of the horse and the cow. Okay, let's do this again. And with that movement, rather than move the camera this way and that way and this way to keep up with them, since he has a little bit of those side frames in there, he allows the horse and cow to move within that frame without moving the camera head. Okay. Now, here's another area that I tell my video guys about. Once the rider has released the cow, there's going to be a moment where he's going to turn around, he's going to adjust himself, getting his reins straightened out or whatever, and he's going to be sizing up the herd. Now, a lot of times when I'm working with new video guys, the first thing they want to do is snap the head around, zoom out, and get ready for the next run. Well, the problem with that is, again, if you're doing a lot of excessive camera movement, it's visually disorienting. So I tell my guys, look, there are those times that they may turn around and rush back into the herd, but very rarely. So what's going to happen is I tell them, stay in on the horse and the rider, let the cow, when it's obvious that they've released, let the cow run its way, run off camera. Then just pause, just stop for a moment. Let the rider turn, and then as they're turning, zoom out a little bit. It kind of helps. It helps with the excessive movement. Okay, let me back up and I'll let it run all the way through, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Okay, and let me mention one other thing. It's kind of, and again, I call this a little bit of cinema. You know, you've got the action, things are moving, the camera's following the action, and everything's all hyped up, and all of a sudden now there's this pause. And that's the moment when we allow the viewer to have a chance to kind of catch up with what just went on. And when you pause for that moment, they've released the cow's run off, they're turning slowly back to the herd, adjusting themselves, getting ready, sizing up the herd. That's the moment just to sit there for a second, let the scene unfold, and then zoom out again to capture the entire herd and the horse and the rider. So you'll see all of that unfold in this next segment. So now he's kind of looking to the right a little bit. Okay, now he's going to peel off a group. Okay, now let me pause that for a second. Now notice one thing. That cow, the one that he actually eventually takes, is right here. He's completely blended in with the turnback rider. And if you were so zoomed, if the videographer zoomed in so much that you clipped out this part of the scene, you would never see the fact that rider was really looking at this cow. So that's why it is important that as the scene unfolds, that you leave a good amount of leeway in here to allow the scene to be taken in so that you can see it visually. Watch. See, now you can start to see the cow, and this is actually the one that he picks. And as you notice, a little video cutting. See, now that was a good example of having enough of your side panel, so to speak, enough video area so that they can run around and not have to snap the head back and forth of the camera. Okay, let me back this up and let you see it again. And if you notice, you know, like I called it before a little bit earlier, we do video cutting. Once this part of the herd is out of the scene, so to speak, once you know that rider has now selected a particular cow, you don't have to worry about this part of the herd anymore. So trim down the scene. You got this abundance of area here. Now the subject is in sight. So let's trim it down and cut out into this area. Okay, now watch that part. Okay, now this part of the herd's out of the way. Now we're focused on what is our main subject here, the horse, rider, and the cow. Now, again, look at your scene. Here's it split up. You've got a center third, you've got an extension on the right side, you've got an area on the left side. As they begin to move, and especially when they start going left and right from within this frame, you do not see the camera excessively moving, trying to keep up with their movement. You allow the movement to swing within your framework. Sometimes I'll relate it to like watching a pendulum swing. You see the exterior or the furthest out that a pendulum will swing. You see it come to center and you see it go back the other way. Once you start to see that, you'll see a rhythm picking up. And as you become more experienced with this, the movement of the horse and the cow becomes obvious. You see that they're going, you can start to see their motion is setting up, that they're about to turn and go the other way. That way, when you expect that, then you don't, it's not like as all of a sudden it's taken you by surprise and you've jerked the head back. You allow them to run to the outer extent and then come back again without moving the camera. This is the frame that we're working in. So let them move within that frame. Now, as it becomes obvious, like I said before, that they start to move across the pen, well, obviously you have to stay up with them. But use that area to your advantage to let them move within it and keep a nice visual continuity to what is being displayed. Okay, now watch this and you'll see the rider again, the horse and the cow. They'll go, left and right a little bit, but the camera stays fairly well centered. See, he's keeping up, but it's not excessive movement. Now watch here, all of that back and forth. Right here, look at that. All that movement from within that frame. Now he's zoomed out a little bit, nice and easy. The rider's looking at the herd again. You can see the entire herd. You can see that he's kind of sizing it up, looking a little bit left, looking a little bit right. Okay, he's going to come back to the center. Obviously, this group right here, they're basically out of the picture, so you don't have to worry about that. So now let's do a little video cutting. And we trim it down, but we still don't know which one yet. So we keep back a little bit, and now one is selected. He's got that baldy. So now we're moving back and forth. And you can see that he's keeping up with the action without excessive head movement.
That was Rocket Lindenberg, straight shot play gun. Once again, the horse owned by Rocket Landing. A 73 on the run, 73.
Okay, and I want to mention a couple of things here. It's very important that we get at a good walk-in at the beginning of the run, but at the end of the run, keep the video running until you hear the horse, the rider, and the score announced. Now, if you are in a situation where the audio is extremely poor, you might be in an auditorium or a large barn area that the echo is so bad you cannot make out what's being said. Under those circumstances, just simply announce the score and then move on. The important part here is that you've seen, as I've mentioned before, is that we try to size up our subject to where we have the screen split up into thirds. Okay, you have a central portion, that's our main focus. We have a left and the right side panel. But we treat this video frame as just as that. It's a framework. So we work within the frame of a visual reference that we have here. So when you have a subject in the center and they start to move left or right, try to work your style so that you're not constantly moving the camera every time that they move. Now, what I tell my beginning videographers is, if you are zoomed in so much that you, or so tightly, that you feel the necessity that if that horse moved, jerked a little bit left or right, that you felt like you had to move with them, then you're too close. It's better to be a little bit further out than so tight that the horse and rider and cow will run off the screen. So in the beginning stage, try to work it so that you have plenty of room on your left and right side panels. Let the horse and the cow work in the central portion of your frame. But just like a pendulum, once you become experienced, you'll start to see how the movement left or right is not going to carry them off the screen. Or if it is, you can just very smoothly pan with the subject and allow them to work within that frame of reference, which of course is our video frame. Well, this is just a beginning, and I hope that this has answered a few questions for some of you. But I'll be doing more of these and presenting techniques. But again, we all want to get to the point where we are working to the same goal, and that is being able to produce more professional video that helps the NCHA judges make calls that help the riders, because that is ultimately what this is all about. This is to help the rider, the competitor, as best as we can. And with a good video, we give them every opportunity. So I sure appreciate you watching this, and look at the next video series that I'm going to be publishing. But in the meantime, I hope this helps you. Thanks a lot.